probably have to follow suit and do the same. Why is it so delayed? Good evening, everybody. Welcome to a very special episode. I'm still going to say the Big Footy Tiger Cast, but tonight isn't all about the Tigers. That will still be happening tomorrow night, so you can still all vent and get your anger out on Monday nights like usual. But we do a very special show on tonight, where we are going to do a bit of a wrap-up of the entire round 23, given there's been quite a few extraordinary games, and the lead into finals is ramping right up, and there's still quite a bit to play out. But to that as well, I'm going to throw to Lachlan straight away. He's going to give a bit more of a background as to why we're here tonight, what we're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. So as some long-term viewers of the Tiger Cast will know, I work with an NDIS registered organisation, and part of my role is as an employment coach is to help build capacity and encourage and grow employability skills with participants. I normally work with school leavers who have just left school and are still working out what they want to do with their careers and their first jobs. But Ben is a participant of my state manager, and he has an interest in sports journalism. And my state manager asked me if there was a chance that he could jump on one of our podcasts, and you've been so gracious and kind to facilitate this. So I'd like to introduce Ben, and Ben is more than comfortable to tell a little bit more about himself. Ben.
All right. Thanks for the introduction, Lachlan. I'll make this quick, so I think it should be more about the footy, not about me. But I am a second-year student at Deakin University who's doing a Bachelor of Arts in Sport Journalism. And I have a belief and a want to be able to enter the AFL industry as a journalist. So to get this opportunity as a start is absolutely big. I have a YouTube channel which I run weekend wraps for every Monday morning called Neora 19. So if anyone wants to go check that out, that'd be nice. And I am more than happy to be on this show tonight.
Absolutely. So, and we will put out the link as well for the YouTube channel post this as well, so everyone can jump on board and drop a subscription and follow Ben's journey.
Absolutely. Ben is also a Melbourne Demons supporter. So just to give you guys a heads up, this won't be the typical Big Footy Tidecast focused on Richmond. This is going to be a full round coverage, and Ben's going to do his thing.
Very good. No, that's awesome doing the sports journalism course. That was actually one I always thought about doing myself too, but I didn't want to re-enter school after already being in school. So well done to you for getting stuck into it, and hopefully it all goes well. Enemy territory. No, he's all right. He's one of the good Melbourne supporters. That's all right. So Cameron, we're doing a generic AFL round 23 wrap-up. So this isn't the usual Monday night show. That's obviously still happening tomorrow night. This is a special one-off event to do a round 23 wrap-up with Ben. So first game we had was Sydney and Essendon. Essendon, they kind of just fallen off a bit of a cliff, haven't they? So what was the result? Sydney won by 39 points, 15-8-98 to Essendon 8-11-59. Luke Parker piped up with 3 goals, which is really interesting for him because he's one that's obviously on the lookout to maybe move elsewhere due to lack of opportunity. Nick Martin 3 for the Bombers, Heaney 3 for the Swans, Hayward 3 for the Swans, Campbell 2 and Amadi 2, and then some individual goal kickers. But Ben, did you catch any of the Swans and the Essendon game? What did you make of it?
That's actually a very interesting point. I was actually at my brother's grand final for most of the game. So this is actually the one game that I missed the most of. And that's bad because I do a Friday recap of every Friday night game. So the fact that
that's all right.
What game I was missing the most of was, kind of annoying. But I thought that a big point of this game that was big was Sydney's explosion in the third quarter. Like, Sydney as a side I've noted throughout the year is a side that, I don't know, their starts and their first quarters are very slow and lacking, which is very worrying. But they've had big quarters where they take one quarter to absolutely blow teams away. It's a double-edged sword because either they can beat any team in a quarter or put themselves in such a deficit early on that they can't come back.
And this game, Lachlan, was super important for Sydney. Given their last month, they kind of fell off the face of the earth, really. They were first comfortably, and then all of a sudden they lost, 4 or 5 games that no one thought they'd lose. So I think they've now cemented top spot, if I'm not mistaken, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, there was a game that both clubs needed to win. Obviously, that all but nail shut Essendon and their finals hopes for 2024, which, as a Richmond supporter, let's be honest, we're not crying over that. But yeah, I think Sydney really needed to come out and make a statement. Obviously, they've had a probably poor 6 weeks, and this was again just a clinical win, very slow in the first half. But the second half, 12 goals to 4. Just when the business was there to be done, they did it quite comfortably. Isaac Heaney again steps up as he's done all year. I think he was another one that's had a bit of a quiet patch over the past few weeks, and it's been shut out. So yeah, I think it was a good thing that the Swans got in, and yeah, locking up first spot gives them obviously the home SCG final, which we know how difficult they are to play up there. So yeah, I think that they found a bit of form that they desperately needed.
2 questions, Ben. First one, what have you thought of Essendon's season? There was obviously maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago, they were sitting second after beating Richmond and North Melbourne in consecutive weeks, and now find themselves missing out on finals again. And the second question is, with Sydney locking up top spot, do they rest players next week, or do they still need to keep form?
This is both incredible questions, Chris. I reckon for Essendon's season, it's rinse and repeat 2023. It's copy and paste of what happened last year, because it's probably even worse because they were second at one point, like halfway through the season, and were like really looking like they could break the overall finals curse. But now that they've gone 3-7 with almost identical percentage to how they ended last season, and with probably a better list, and now they're almost in they're in a hole again, which you guys be not crying about being Richmond fans. I've got annoying Essendon relatives, so I'm not crying about their demise either as well. For Sydney, look, I'm a believer of you have to keep form heading into finals. Even since I've seen so many teams rest players heading into a finals campaign, but then they lose form and clearly aren't themselves heading into the first final. I think Sydney should be aiming to try and beat Adelaide as much as they can to make sure that they are at the peak of their powers heading into a final against probably Geelong, who will be a tough challenge.
Yeah, I think so too. It's that week off in between that really hurts teams with the management of plays. But I tend to agree with you, especially on the back of the losses they've had recently prior to this week. I think it is going to be even more important for them to feel better about themselves and their winning ways heading into finals. But it's always interesting when it comes down to injuries too, because they've lost some key players in the last couple of weeks. But I think you're right. They've got to keep winning form. I think that's the best way to play football.
Yeah, in regards to Essendon, obviously, I think this year is probably, you'd have to mark it worse than 2023, in my opinion, given that they were a lot higher up on the ladder, and they've brought in Ben McKay to cover a glaring hole that they had last year. And his game on the weekend wasn't great. I mean, I definitely think that 2024 is definitely a worse season for the Bombers than 2023.
I think so too. What are we up to now? 7,500 days or something like that without a finals win. So I'm sure someone in chat will have the figure for us. It makes us feel good about ourselves.
Hey, whenever you're about your team, just remember that Essendon have not won a final in my lifetime, and it's all good.
That's right. It's always a way to put a smile on everyone's face. Next game we'll look at is your mob. So the Demons getting up against the Suns, which was really actually quite a big result. 18-9, 117 to 9-9, 63 largely because Gold Coast have, I think, up until then won every game at home for the year, and it was kind of turning into a fortress of sorts for them, and they were struggling on the road. So for Melbourne to go over there and knock them off in their home deck so comprehensively was really, really impressive. But I'll let you take this one, Ben. This is your team. This is your time to shine.
Yes. Overall, it was a big win. It was a win I wasn't expecting because of like everything that like obviously went on with Melbourne throughout the week. Like they were in the media, like they went through hell and back. I'm not making puns here in the media, and like started dealing with Petrarca trade rumors. Neil Bullen arcs out of the club, and like I felt like if this game was in Melbourne or Marvel, I felt like we might have not seen this result. But heading up to Gold Coast for a weekend away from the Vic media bubble, I think was massive for their confidence, and I think really suited them. I overall think like their leaders like stepped up when it matters. Like Max Gorn had a phenomenal game in the ruck. Jack Viney had like 27 disposals or something. I think he had an almost statement performance that like he doesn't want to go anywhere and wants to stay with the club. And I thought that they finally got some scoring power from their forward line. Talking to around 23, probably too late in the season to get it. But they finally got it in Daniel Turner, who they've been waiting to have like a major performance. He had 4 goals, which was big to see. And Jacob Van Rooyen also had a big game. Like he's had 1 or 2 massive games. I think Essendon was another big game he had against. But he had another big performance that I think left the Suns defense overall at shore.
Was Bailey Fritsch playing?
Yes, he was, but he didn't have as much of a starring role.
Okay. I really like Bailey Fritsch. I think he's heavily underrated amongst the competition. But no, that's a good performance. I think disposal-wise, Ed Langdon had 37. Yeah. That would have to be career high for him, I would have to assume. 37. That's a huge effort.
No doubt.
Yeah, 37 and a goal. Absolutely massive. 10 marks. Patrolled that wing just fantastically. Jack Viney, as you mentioned, Ben, was fantastic. 30 disposals and kick 2 as well. I definitely agree with you in that the game being played on the Gold Coast means you sort of escape that sort of media-driven sort of narrative throughout the week. Obviously, living up there, AFL is not such a big thing media-wise as opposed to NRL and everything like that. So it would have been a nice break for the players just to get away and they can focus on the game rather than all the external noise. So yeah, I definitely think that's a great thing. And again, as a Richmond supporter, Dimmer only finishing 5 wins above Richmond, or 5 places above Richmond for his shiny new toys. That puts a smile on my face too this weekend. So it's been a very good weekend.
You'd be so glad that Dusty just retired straight up instead of going to the Gold Coast. It was the right decision. He made the right move by doing that. Probably 100%. The best of his career was doing that. Especially
his body's cooked. There was no way he was going to get up and play, whether it was for us or another club. So it was, you're right. It was the right choice. Now, you mentioned Neil Bullen, how he obviously announced during the week his intentions to move back to South Australia, I think it was, back home post this season. What I like and respect from Goodwin is the fact that he's still picked him to play, because this has always been a contentious issue. I know the NRL, they do it like this. Players will announce their movements before the season's ended, and they'll keep playing for their current club. And it's always been a question for AFL supporters is, can we cope with that, or would we be wanting them to be sitting out if they're not going to be there next year? Were you comfortable as a Melbourne supporter with Neil Bullen still playing, even though you know he's not going to be there next year?
Oh, I'm fine with that. He's been a terrific servant for the club. He's been a phenomenal servant. He was a big role in 2021 when we won the flag. And overall, I just think that he's been a phenomenal servant, and I think he deserves to play these last 2 games. He still plays a big role. We respect the decision as well. We understand that living for so long in Victoria as a South Australian can be hard, and we respect the move. If he wants to move to South Australia, play for the Crows, probably in his twilight, we fully respect that, and we'll cheer him on with his new role at the Crows. So yes, and
I think it's a good mindset to have. I think him moving for those reasons makes it easier to swallow, I guess, as opposed to Lachlan. If someone was moving blatantly for a cash grab or a premiership chase or something like that, maybe it wouldn't sit as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like Tom Scully, prime example, as a D's fan who moved to GWS on that big money contract. I mean, you got players there who are like, if they leave for the right reasons, whether it be for family reasons, maybe they're unsettled, or they've won a flag, they've been on peanuts during those flag years, and that they're having that one cash out year of, okay, well, I'm getting towards the end. Let's take that one big money contract, secure my financial security. You can't begrudge a player for that. But when it's just, for example, Tom Scully or Tom Boyd, for example, these highly rated youngsters who are getting traded out 1 or 2 years into a contract for big money because they're from an interstate club, that's where I think the system is broken.
100%.
Definitely. No, well, good on Alex Neil-Bullen. Next game we've got is the Giants versus the Dockers. The GWS won by 9 points, 15-11, 101 to 14-8, 92. This was a massive result in the context of both teams' seasons. For the Giants, it gives them a good chance at top 4. And for Freo, well, ultimately, they're now out of the 8, which is a massive price to pay because they were pretty much almost locked in had they won this game, but they've now left the door wide open for a couple of teams to pass them. And they've given themselves a bit of a tough run on the run home, Ben. But Jesse Hogan, 6 goals. I think is he won the Coleman, or because Kerno's not playing, so he's pretty much going to win it, isn't he? I think
the only way he loses Coleman from here is if Cameron or Jake Waterman in Geelong next week have like a blinder for performance, like 10 goals.
So he's 13 ahead of Ben King, who's in 3rd.
Oof. Jeez.
He's all but locked it up, you'd say.
Yeah, he'd say he's got a phenomenal year from Jesse Hogan.
Given everything that he's gone through, obviously we know about the testicular surgery and the off-field, the mental health and the depression and everything. Fair play for him to come in and have a career best season. Like, fair play to the bloke. That's all you can say.
It's phenomenal. It's a phenomenal story because when the Giants traded for him, everyone was saying, why? Like, he was traded for peanuts because he completely failed with Fremantle, and a lot of people had him written down as someone who never achieved what his potential showed early on in his career. So, but I feel like he's also a player who's he's another player like Buddy Franklin, who I feel like suits the more quiet Sydney lifestyle as compared to everyone else. And I've always felt like this was where he was going to achieve his goal. So I don't hold it against Freo and Melbourne because of the fact that I felt like this is his perfect location and his perfect club. And credit to the Giants for just facilitating him, for building him up into this phenomenal forward. And it's so good to see he's so watchable, and it's going to be so good to see him with the Coleman. And I think he can have a massive impact in this final series as well.
I think the Giants are going to be one of the teams to beat in finals. Their players are starting to hit form again after some big slumps. Tom Green, for example, 40 disposals, 13 clearances and 5 tackles. Just a ridiculous game for anyone to have. But how deep do you see the Giants going in finals being? Are they a team you reckon that can go all the way?
Here's a fun fact about the Giants. Back in March, I had them winning the flag. They were my preseason tip to win it.
Right, okay.
Heading into the finals, they're my tip to win it at the moment. Not just go deep, go all the way.
Yeah,
I think they're the most talented side in terms of all over the park, but I still think they're struggling with their reliance on too many of their better players to stand up. Toby Green, Tom Green, these sorts of players. And you also got to think of Sam Taylor's been a massive injury for them this year as well. So, yeah, they were my pick as well, Ben, this preseason. So, yeah, hopefully now that they've found some form and can lock in a top 4 spot. So they're currently, they've locked in top 4. So I think that's going to take a bit of pressure off them now. They've locked in that top 4 spot. So definitely, I think now that that's off them, they can now focus on winning the games. And they're probably the one that I can see doing the most damage.
They've done well because they did have a form slump, so good on them to get back in there.
They've won 7 in a row heading into finals. And overall, like we always talk about who's in the most form at the right time. They're hitting their peak at the right time. And as Chris said, all of their players, their most important players, most smart players, most critical players have hit form.
Which has been a double positive for me because that's helped my super coach tremendously. Now in a grand final, Whitfield and Tom Green have done me wonders. So they've been very, very solid. But no, I think they'll be one of the teams to beat. Next game was an absolute ripper at the MCG. Collingwood versus Brisbane. The Magpies getting up by 1 point, 11-13, 79 to 11-12, 78. This is the one that got away for Brisbane. Does this have implications for their season? I'm not too sure. I haven't looked at the ladder closely, but it keeps Collingwood alive, I think. But to get those last 3 goals, I think it was McCreary got the one with a couple of minutes to go, and they were just able to ice the game. It was a phenomenal effort. Joe Danaher kicked 4. Lachie Schultz kicked 2. He got a clutch goal as well, actually. Lachie Neale 2. Dan McStay 2. McCreary 2. Lohman 2. Dacos 2. And a heap of individual goal kickers. What did you make of this game, Ben? This was an extraordinary finish.
Yes, this is an extraordinary finish. Like, it's the Collingwood of old. Like, right when I thought and right when I think everyone thought that, like, oh, no, they're gone. Like, I feel like this game proved that Collingwood can still make these, like, insane comebacks if you let them. And, like, a big part of this game at the end was Lachie Schultz, who's been such like maligned. Like everyone was like giving it into him and fairly because he hasn't lived up to Collingwood giving it out a first round pick for him.
Yeah,
but he was the one who kicked 2 crucial goals that got this crowd well and truly into it. And also Nick Dacos. Like I feel like every week we probably say just how good Nick Dacos is. Every Pies win is followed with Nick Dacos breaking the scoring board, but like his performance was just absolutely insane. Like almost 30 plus disposals, like 2 goal of the year contenders. In that second quarter, they were at sea. He single-handedly got Collingwood back in the game.
They're just the side that never gives up, Lachlan. We've seen it for the last 2 years, but yeah, to be 30 points down and to drag this one back, it just gives them that little bit of belief that they still might be a sneaky chance.
Yeah, I wonder if you're going to have McRae come out and question the umpires about this one. There were 5 or 6 key decisions that went the Pies' way in that last sort of 15 minutes, and they got 3 goals from it. But yeah, again, you play to the whistle, and again, it's up to Brisbane not to give an umpire a reason to blow the whistle. So again, just it's to the point now where you'd have to call Brisbane mentally weak. They just don't have that strength to win, and especially at the MCG. So it's going to be another case of what if. And while technically there's still a chance to miss finals, they're going to need Fremantle to absolutely smash Port Adelaide next week, and a few other results go their way. So you'd say that they're probably going to get a home elimination final just purely based on their percentage, because they do have a healthy percentage. But on form, on paper, on the side that they have, you definitely have to say it's another poor season for them based on expectations.
Yeah, they've always been an interesting one, and I know we've spoken about it a lot. It's their second forward for me that's the missing piece. Hipwood, I don't think, is good enough in those big moments. I know he's now spent some time down back. Maybe that's where he flourishes with a bit more experience and time in bigger games. I'm not too sure. Joe Danaher, I think, can hold it more than hold his own. But you're right, there is just that mental hurdle for them to overcome in the final series. They obviously made the grand final last year, but just couldn't get the job done. But it's interesting because if they keep falling short, at what point does it become a fail with Chris Fagan?
Yeah, I see Fagan, again, much like I see Ross Lyon. He's a great coach, but I don't think he's good enough to get the team to the top of the mountain. He's good enough to get them to base camp and, Hillary Step, for example, if we're using that analogy, but he's not good enough to reach the summit. Especially with the players that he's brought in. He had a decent list, but you bring it, and he's brought in Dunkley and all these types of players. But Charlie Cameron's starting to slow down. You see it in his form. Joe Danaher's starting to, hit the 30-plus age. Like, it's just, at this point, you'd say this was probably his best bet to get them to that point, because natural progression with their aging side, Sorko is another, Neil, these players are gonna be on the downslide soon. And once that happens, how much of it is actually going to count for the future for them? So yeah, I really think that this is, again, another lost opportunity for them, and I'm not sure where they go to from here.
Oh, there we go. So apparently Carlton's win has shut the door on the Pies. There we go. Thank you, Andy. I did not know that. I hadn't looked at the ladder since the last couple of games. But that's lights out. That's another tick in the box for us. Very good.
All you need
next,
considering your Richmond fans, is to get Carlton out. All you need to do is just Barracks and Kilda, Barracks and Kilda, and then that's the trio done.
I'm not sure if Lachlan's ever spoken to you about the Twitter wars we have with a certain Carlton page, but you don't understand the amount of joy it would give us if Carlton missed the finals, and the amount of tweets that will get fired off at rapid speed will be incredible. So hopefully I'll be cheering for St Kilda undoubtedly. Next game was the showdown. Port Adelaide versus Adelaide, 11-14-80 to 8-10-58. The Power winning by 22 points. Goal kickers, Willie Rioli 2, Rankin 2, Horne-Francis 2, Fogarty 2, Francis Evans 2, Burne-Jones 2, and a heap of individual goal kickers. Zach Butters, 42 disposals, if you don't mind, 10 clearances. Again, thanks for my Supercoach score there, Mr. Butters. But Port put in a pretty good display. But I think, unquestionably, the main talking point coming from this game is the Dan Houston bump on Isaac Rankin that knocked him out, and he was taken off on a stretcher. There's been a lot of mixed views on this, and it was kind of hard to tell if I was reading Port Adelaide supporter comments or generic AFL fans. Some are arguing that he didn't actually hit him in the head. It was the hit on the ground that knocked him out. I couldn't really tell. It looked like it did get him high, but I wasn't sure if it was his head or not. But Ben, thoughts on the game firstly, and then also about that big bump from Houston on Rankin?
Yeah, good introduction to that. Look, I thought this is a big win for Port Adelaide because I tipped Adelaide going into this because, Port on paper should win this, but the Crows had just had the wood on them as of late. And overall, I just thought that, Port Adelaide, you talk about Brisbane having a, mental problem. I always thought Port Adelaide's been, a mentally soft side for a while, as hard as that may be. But I've always thought they've also had that this team has the talent, if they can put it together, to do good things, to do brilliant things. But I was just scared it was going to be another inconsistent performance that the Crows won. But luckily, it wasn't. Zach Butters is the kind of player who can break open a final against any team. And the way it's going, they beat Freo. They host 2 home finals. So, and I'm hoping for their fans that they don't do what Melbourne did and do 2 straight years with straight sets exits. So, but the Dan Houston bump, I think he's played his last game for Port Adelaide. That's my overall take from that. Since he's leaving the club next season to go back to Victoria, and he wanted to play a part in the final series, and I think he's played his last game for Port Adelaide, which could be a big out, considering I think he's big for them just to be able, as a weapon, to put in the midfield, but also in defense. And he's been a clutch kick as well whenever they've needed it. So it could be a big out, and I think it will be a big out.
Yeah, he's a massive out. He is their link up and go-to man for sure. Lachlan, thoughts on the bump and the result?
See, I think it was a fair bump. Personally, watching it and seeing the thing, because the umpire didn't pay a free kick.
that's the interesting part, is not one umpire paid a free kick.
Yeah.
But there's precedent with that too, because there's then been like tackles that have happened that have not been paid free kicks, but they've been suspended for.
Absolutely. But they kept saying that the bump is not dead. You just need to bump fairly. Well, based on what I've seen in the footage and everything, it doesn't look like he's got him high. It just looks like as you bump, that sort of fold in and his head drops down. I think he got him fair. And then again, we're a contact sport, and they kept saying that the bump isn't dead. You just need to do it fairly. Well, how are they going to suspend a player when there's doubt about whether it was head contact or not? And if he is concussed, was it from the bump or was it from him hitting his head? There needs to be some accountability and some leeway for that, because we've got a game where you can tackle, you can bump, you can do all these things, but there's also a hard surface that they're playing on. And if any sort of head contact gets made to the surface, there needs to be some leeway as to not penalising players. If someone does a tackle that's reasonable, but they hit their head, everything that happens now is commentators are up in arms. It's a question of, is he in trouble for that, for any minor thing? And I think the system is broken in that way, because how else are we going to tackle? If we're going to start penalising any contact to the head on grass, you may as well remove tackling, wrap them in bubble wool, make them wear helmets, do whatever you need to. But yeah, I think the way that the game is played now, again, they just need to use some common sense. But yeah, I'm in the camp that I think Houston's a little unlucky with the optics of it, but I don't think he got him high.
It's an interesting one, because the talk's always, if you elect a bump, then the onus is on you. And the question then becomes, how far does that extend? Because if he didn't hit him in the head and he didn't leave the ground, and it was the ground that knocked him out, then how much of that onus is on Houston? You're right. Optically, it is a horrible look. And honestly, my first instinct and thought was 5 to 6 weeks. But that was probably without zooming in and seeing if he actually hit him in the head or not. But it's going to be interesting. And look, I've seen a lot of people write similar comments to this from Andy, and this isn't a shot at Andy, like how Maynard ended Brayshaw's career. My thing with that is that Maynard, and look, I don't like Collingwood, I'm a Richmond supporter, but I defended Maynard on this instance because he was making an attempt on the ball. Houston wasn't, and also the rules were different back in the Maynard incident versus this one. It's now been rewritten so that if Maynard did what he did then today, he would get weeks, but based on the rulings at the time, there was no provision for it because he was making an attempt on the footy.
Yeah, the one thing for me that I believe Houston didn't get him high, but I think he is going to get suspended only for one simple thing. The AFL Council will argue that he elected to bump when he could have tackled. He made that
100%.
choice. And that's where Houston is going to get done.
And people defend Maynard, Andy, because he was trying to smother the ball, but you are allowed to try and do football acts. And sometimes it's, you know what, shit happens. It's a contact sport. And it was proven biomechanically that he didn't have time to make a conscious decision. Anyway, that's an argument for a different time. But anyway, we'll watch this one with a lot of interest, the Dan Houston story. We'll see how that unfolds. But I tend to agree. I think he's played his last game for the Power. The next game was St Kilda versus Geelong. This was an absolute doozy of a game. St Kilda 16-11, 107, defeated Geelong 14-5, 89 by 18 points. Now, I don't know how much of this one you saw, Ben, but early days, I thought Geelong were going to win this by 50 plus. They were absolutely dominating. And then to the point where I actually flicked over to the showdown because I'm like, oh, well, that game's pretty much done. I'll watch a game that's closer. And then I kind of see the scoreboard ticking over down the bottom. I'm like, hang on, St Kilda are almost in front here.
Yes, definitely. I've got a fun anecdote about this game that's can be so good. So I at halftime decided to go out, maybe because I was in such a good mood at Melbourne shockingly winning, and go get another iced coffee, just for some like celebration drinks, and overall like. I was planning to stop to showdown when I got back. When I got back, it was 7 points only that the Geelong lead was, when it was 33 when I went out. So first of all, something I learned from that is that anytime Geelong lead by 30 plus, I am going to go get a drink. So, yes, I do love seeing Geelong get done. Doesn't happen much, so I've got to we got to appreciate it when it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very much in that same boat as a lot of the long-time listeners and Chris know. But anytime Geelong can lose, it always makes my day. Doesn't matter how Richmond have travelled. If Geelong lose, I'm good for the week.
Same.
Yeah,
I know,
incredible.
Who are Geelong fans who are so annoying, and most of my friends are Geelong fans as well. So it's finally you get to learn what it's like for only 2 hours what it's like to be a Melbourne supporter for 60% of your life.
Now, I'm sure I've taken this out of context. I did put up a TikTok on it because it was funny. That Chris Scott in a press conference blamed the conditions at Marvel for part of the reason why they lost. I'm like, the roof's closed. I'm pretty sure there's no 5-goal breeze coming in from the Tony Lockett end to cause you that loss. But yeah, I'm not sure how much, if it has big ramifications or not for them, Lachlan, for the Cats. St Kilda, it didn't matter either way. They're pretty much done and dusted. But it's good to keep them on their toes.
So what it means for Geelong is if they had have won, they were guaranteed top 4. Right now, you've still got Brisbane, Western Bulldogs, Hawthorn, and Carlton who can all jump into 4th spot based on this mathematically, but Geelong have West Coast and Geelong.
Oh, geez, I'm going to smash them.
So, they've sewn up a top 4 spot based on expected results. But, yeah, there was a few nervy Cat supporters who didn't know what the fixture was that I was talking to last night until they realised that they had West Coast, and they're a lot calmer now. But, yeah, they're obviously they're on 56 points with a percentage of 107, but you've got Brisbane, who's 2 points behind on 121, Western Bulldogs 4 points behind on 123, and Hawthorn and Carlton on 52, who are also on 110, 111. So mathematically still possible, but yeah, West Coast, if West Coast can knock Geelong off in Geelong and cost them a top 4 spot,
do we dare to dream?
Surely that would be
amazing if it occurs.
Yeah. If that happens, Scotty, there'll be serious question marks on Scotty, you'd have to think.
That would be epic. If West Coast can knock them off, that would be...
Geelong will shut down for a week in despair if this happens. Because they start used to it.
Oh, you'd love to see it.
But no,
next...
I was cooking dinner for myself and my mum had the game on the background, and all I just hear is, "What the hell are you doing? What happened?" Because she's sitting there knitting and she zoned out and for 2.5 quarters, and she was knitting some stuff for my baby sister and my sister's baby, and yeah, she finally finished her pat and looked at the TV and didn't like what she saw.
Jesus, well, hopefully they can lose another one next week. Next game was an absolute smashing. Western Bulldogs, 20 goals, 18, 138, defeated North Melbourne, 6-6-42 by 96 points. Yeah, that's some crazy numbers. Sam Darcy kicked 7 goals, 9 marks, 5 hit-outs. Hugo Hagan, 3 goals, Waitman 2, Richards 2, Norton 2, McRae 2, and best for the Kangas was Hanson Jr. with 2, and a heap of individual goal kickers. Did anyone get some big numbers? Treloar, 33, carried on his very, very good season. But there's not much that can be said about that. That is an absolute thumping of all proportions, Ben. But the Bulldogs, they're starting. I know I think they lost last week from memory, but their month in total has been in pretty good form, and I think they're a team that could cause some damage in finals.
Yes, 100%. I think they're also if you look at history, 2016 and 2021, they're the team that from a bottom 4 position. Just on that last Collingwood comment, check mathematical equations and come back to me. But yeah, for the Dogs, back on topic, I think overall, yeah, they're the team that under Lou Beveridge, I think they get fired up and so excited about potentially coming all the way back. And their last month, they have 4 30-plus point wins in their overall docket. And, God, Bulldogs-Giants next week is going to be such an exciting game. I definitely think they'll get in, and they've got the talent, much like Port Adelaide. I think to argue more than Port Adelaide to just be able to storm. I think Bontempelli is probably the best player in the game when he's firing. They've got 2 elite full forwards in Darcy and Ugelhagen, who tore apart North Melbourne. They've got a midfield that can just get firing at the right time. So, yeah, completely and utterly, they are one to watch. And I wouldn't be shocked if they make a prelim. I would not be shocked at all if they cause a straight sets exit.
Yeah, agree. They don't need to finish top 4, Lachlan, to cause damage. I agree with you, Ben. They've got such a good list. And when I did my ladder predictor, I kind of had them somewhere between 6th and 12th because on their day, they're unbelievable. But sometimes the difference between their best and worst was pretty large. But I think they've shrunk that gap a little bit. And I know, Lachlan, that we were probably knocking Luke Beveridge quite a bit early on in the season with some of his decisions to drop Caleb Daniel and McRae and things like that. But maybe there was some method in his madness.
Yeah, the Dogs are always a fascinating case study each season in that you never know which Bulldog side is going to turn up week to week. They're probably a 7 out of 10 in terms of consistency, week in, week out. Their season's probably going to be a 7 out of 10. They'll probably make finals, so they may do some damage, but they may not win it. But then you have games like today where you sit back and you think, geez, if they play like this, there's really no side that could really match them. But then you have games where you know that they probably should win and they don't give a whimper. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I definitely think North fans will be disappointed. They've had a pretty competitive last 4 or 5 weeks. And to get blown out like this, I think based on last week and this week, they'd have to be disappointed. But, yeah, again, I think the Bulldogs definitely are a side that can do some damage. And the Jeddah West Bulldogs game is going to be massive because there's a rivalry. Those clubs really do not like each other.
Yeah, that stems back to a couple of final series, doesn't it?
The 2016 prelim and the whole Tom Boyd thing.
There's a chance that they meet in a final. There's a serious chance that if seeding plays out, that they meet in a final as well. So it might not be the final installment to that Dogs Giants rivalry this year. And what a final it would be if they do meet.
Yeah. It'd be a cracker. Kylie, we are still on Rory Lobb watch. What do you think? 13 disposals and 10 hit outs. It's so funny that he's actually gotten better since CB asked for him to be traded to us. But yeah, that was the Dogs. They are the real deal, I think. I would not want to be playing them in a finals match, put it that way. Next game, I'd rather not have to talk about it, to be honest. Yeah. Hawthorn versus Richmond. I sat in the Hawthorn cheer squad wearing my Richmond hoodie, just miserable for 4 quarters. 19-17, 131 to 10-8, 68. They'd done us by 63 points. We kicked the first goal of the first 2 quarters, so that was something. But outside of that, they were very, very good. Gunston kicked 5, Watson 3, Deer 3. Best rush was Bolton with 3. Warple got 2, Dylan Moore 2. Mantle 2, Noel Bolter 2, and a heap of individual goal scorers. John Newcomb topped all disposal getters with 33 and Warple 29. This was a painful game to watch. I'm not sure how many games of ours you've seen, Ben, but this year I reckon that was easily our worst performance for the year across 4 quarters. We were legitimate witches' hats. It was so hard to watch.
Look, I feel like I feel like the Brisbane game back at the Gabba, I think it was round 11 or 12 was probably worse.
That's a good call. I try to forget about that. Yeah, fair call. Fair call.
But yeah, overall, I don't think it was more because of Richmond. It was more because the Hawks are that good and that entertaining at the moment. They're my second team. Obviously, I'm a Melbourne fan, but they are such a fun watch and such an exciting watch. They remind me a lot about, God forbid, Collingwood. Last year, in which it didn't matter their pass. It's you just loved watching them. And overall, you just love what they're doing. And I cannot wait to see them in September. They've got North Melbourne next week. They're in. They're pretty much in. So I cannot wait to see them in September. The only concern is Will Day. That is a big loss if he's out for the game.
Well, it's broken collarbone. I think it's been diagnosed. So that season done for him. Obviously, it's a very, very big part of their side. He obviously wasn't needed today, given the opposition, but that is definitely a big out for them. Lachlan, the Hawks, my only question with them is, will they have spent all their petrol tickets getting to the finals? Because I'm pretty sure no other team bar Sydney has made finals on the back of that bad of a start to the year. I think that was lost 5 or something like that. Have they spent too much tickets to get there, or is the wave of emotion and enjoyment of their football going to carry them through for a couple of weeks still?
Well, you're discounting us in, was it 2014?
2014. You started that year. Phenomenal.
3-10 and made finals. I think with Hawthorn, I don't think they'll falter sort of like we did. I think they got a good mix of youth and experienced players, and they're all pretty decent athletes. They've got a decent tank. They got speed, and they're riding a wave of momentum and emotion. And we sort of saw what that did with Richmond in 2017. We saw it with Melbourne in 2021. Obviously, the Dogs in 2016. So they're peaking at the right time. I think they're getting the business done. They're knocking off decent sides. Obviously, today we're not a decent side, but their wins over the last 3 or 4 weeks against much better sides than them. There's no reason why they can't be a smoky. But they'll be right now, based on form, they're the one side that you're probably hoping you don't meet first week, because
Absolutely.
They're not going to make top 4. Yeah. They're not going to make top 4, so it's going to be an elimination final, and they're probably the hottest form team in the comp based on, the game plan that they're playing and everything. You got that, I hate to say it, but is a good player, but Nick Watson, who is tearing up forward. Dylan Moore's having a fantastic game. Jai Newcomb, Sicily's intercepting back to his best. They've just got players all over the park. Kel Shadir, who for a first-year forward is a string beans, taking some decent contested marks. He's got a decent
good grab
on him. They remind me very much of the Dogs in 2016, where they're riding those young players, just looking like they're having fun. But the main question mark for me is, how are they going to go up against a team with a midfield that's actually competitive? Because that first quarter today, Richmond's midfield just let them stroll it out from centre clearance after centre clearance after centre clearance with no pressure whatsoever. I mean, the fact that, they put 8 goals on the board in 8 minutes of actual game time is insane, just due to lack of no pressure. So, I mean, they've got
Kangaroos next week.
So based on what we've seen today, that should be another comfortable win for them. And they could be potentially, depending on how games go, looking at a home elimination final, which would be massive for them.
Do they get Mitch Lewis back, or is he gone for the year? I can't remember what his injury is. But Chol, to be fair to Chol, I know there was a lot of Richmond supporters who probably had doubts on whether Chol would perform at Hawthorn, but fair play to him and to Hawthorn that they have found a way to unlock the work rate part of his game, which has enabled him to be a reasonably good player. He did have a couple of bad blues today, but over the course of a whole year, I think he's actually been super impressive, especially in the absence of Mitch Lewis.
Yeah, Lewis is out for the season.
He's done. So, okay, so it's...
Season. He did it really early pre-season, which makes this run even more remarkable. Because I remember when he did it pre-season, every Hawks fan I know just said, season's done. Yeah. Best finished as 12th.
Didn't he come back though? I thought he came back for one game, or 2 games.
He did come back, yeah.
He might have re-injured it though.
Yeah. Oh, well, Hawks, I think I agree. You don't want to meet them week 1 of a final.
Bulldogs
they've also got
happens is the week 1 final of the year. That's going to be the best final of week 1 if it does occur.
They've also got CJ to come back too.
Yeah, true. Yeah, another very good addition to their side. The last game for the round was West Coast versus Carlton. The Blues getting up by 65 points, 14-15-99 to 4-10-34. It's actually, I don't want to be blasé about this, but it's actually quite an extraordinary win from Carlton given the players that they were missing from last week. They'd literally, all their forward line got completely decimated. But Brody Kemp popped up with 4 goals, Owies with 3, Waterman for the Eagles got 2, Kennedy for the Blues 2, and a heap of individual goal kickers. Hewitt and Cripps led the way with 35 disposals each. Cripps also with 10 clearances and Hewitt with 10 tackles. That was a much-needed win for Carlton. That has legitimately kept their season alive because it was win or go home, essentially, for them. Ben, if West Coast had got the job done, that was it for the Blues, but they are still around and still a chance to play finals this year.
Yes, they 100% are. Look, as I said, it's a massive result. And I think the big thing about it was the fact that I think they found like new forwards to come in, almost like new pieces, new soldiers to come in with Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay missing the game. Like Kemp and Owies coming forward and having a massive impact was like so massive. Granted, I thought the Eagles defense like could have done so much of a better job defending them. So like against the Saints defense, which is way better, a Ross Lyon coached unit is always going to make you struggle defensively. Will make you work for your goals every time. Is going to be interesting next week. But and another thing, I hope you guys agree with this, but like, even though like I'm not the biggest fan of Carlton as well, like you guys, Patrick Cripps is a legend. Patrick Cripps is like one of the greatest players in the modern game. And this was one of his peak performances. With all the players out, they needed someone like him to step up, and he stepped up with one of the greatest performances of his career.
Yeah. I mean, I look back at that draft and just look at Ben Lennon taking the literal pick before Cripps, and I weep. I weep.
Ben Lennon before Cripps. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Then like you have your wins and your losses at the draft as Richmond supporters very much well know.
Hey, don't worry. 09, you guys, we took 2 players.
That's the one. That's the one that I hold on to, 09. But like Cripps is just fantastic. He's an absolute weapon for them. My only concern is I get the feeling that he's one significant injury away from his body completely breaking down because of the way that he's carried that club. It's almost very much like Judd once his hammies went and his shoulder. Like the amount of heavy lifting he does for that club and winning it at the coalface. Yeah, I think it's just going to take one injury team, very much like Delaney for Richmond. You know, it was that Mr. Reliable, and then that one injury. I think it's definitely gonna ruin it. But absolute beast of a player, Cripps, and one that I wish we had.
One that I think every club wishes they had. Every single club wishes they had Patrick Cripps.
And I think as well, it's the loyalty he's also showed to Carlton too. Like there's been undoubtedly plenty of opportunities for him to leave for bigger and better contracts elsewhere along his journey. But for him to stick it out with the Blues because he wants to achieve something there speaks a bit about his character as well. And look, he's going to have a big game ahead of him against the Saints. He's probably going to have to try and repeat that performance to get him into finals. But if there's anyone who's a chance to do it, I think he is the man.
100%. We'll probably have to do it for Tagger. I think it's Windhager who's the Saints' current major tagger. So
is he out there? Or is he in? I wasn't sure if he was
But he might
Out
be out.
or not?
Question. He might be.
But that is that's a massive game. Are Kernell and Mackay missing the St Kilda game as well, or is one of them back?
So Windhager is out for the season.
Oh, yeah.
Carlton here. Mackay 1 to 2 weeks. Kerno 1 to 2 weeks. So there's every chance that they miss this week as well. De Koning is out for 3 to 4. Martin 1 to 2 weeks. Sard 1 to 2 weeks.
So
Chera, yeah. So there's a chance that, yeah.
So to Ben's point, that St Kilda's defence is probably a lot more sturdy than what West Coast is, so they may have a bit more of a difficult time scoring, which is going to make that contest fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, Callum Wilkie, like going back to the St Kilda Geelong game, his second half, phenomenal. Like he was that Alex Rance type brick wall, just did not let them get past them. I think he had 7 or 8 intercept marks in the second half, which is mind-blowing for someone who was gassed. They just couldn't get past him. So, yeah, if they don't have both of their tools back, I think Wilkie's really going to pose a significant problem for them.
Definitely.
I agree.
I think if they're a real chance, like I think they'll probably go in as favourites because like everyone will be. I feel a lot of that's not a lot of like Alice will be all back on the Blues train after that performance. But to have an even better chance of winning this, I think they need one of the tools back because it just gives that extra nightmare like matchup problem for Offline and the Saints.
I think it's been a long time since a last round of football has had this much on the line. Final question. Obviously, in the EPL, for the last round of the year, they all start at the same time. And it's given some fascinating results along the way. I don't know whether it's logistically possible to even do that in the AFL. But would that be of interest to anyone to have all the games kick off at the same time or roughly around the same time so that all the scores are running side by side so the results aren't known until right to the very end?
Look, it would be very interesting, but I think if you think about it more, like you'd have one game at Optus, one game at Adelaide Oval, one game at the Gabba. You'd have one in New South Wales, so that's 4. But when you get to the Victorian clubs, that's when it'll be tough because one has to be at the G. Geelong will get a home game at GMHBA Stadium because that's another stadium you can fill. Dogs probably get a home game at Mars Stadium, and there's one at Marvel. You could do it, but I feel like it would overall like give some clubs a bigger advantage versus others in the heading into the final round, knowing that they've got one extra game no matter what at that stadium.
Yeah, I agree. I think logistically you could do it. Obviously, you've got the 2 grounds in Queensland. You've got Gold Coast, you've got Brisbane. You've got the 2 in New South Wales. You've got the SCG, and you've got the Olympic Stadium for the Giants. Yeah,
it's cold.
Yeah, you've got the 3 main ones in Victoria, and then you've got the ones in WA and SA. But yeah, I don't think logistically it'll work. I mean, public transport. Imagine if you've got 3 major sporting events on all at the same time. Imagine what Southern Cross Station is going to look like for those who are coming back from the G, need to go through Geelong or Gippsland, having to deal with the foot traffic from Marvel, for example. It'll be a logistical nightmare there.
True.
But again, looking at it as well, I don't like the way that it is right now, because if you're all but guaranteed finals and you know the day before because a team that you needed to lose to secure does, and then you've got a player who's key to you but's got a bit of a niggle and was going to play if you needed him to rest him, that's where I don't like it either. So I think right now it's just a system. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But I think there are some things that could be tweaked.
Fair enough. No, that's a fair enough call. All right, well, that is a wrap for tonight.
We got to touch on the 21-day concussion.
I don't.
Oh no, sorry, no, that's my fault. I synced my Facebook and it was from ages ago. I thought it was today because it's on my work laptop. I had to sync my messages and I must have been looking at messages from forever ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No.
my bad.
Oh, good. All right. Well, thank you to everybody for tuning in tonight. Obviously, a little bit of a different show compared to what we usually do. We'll be back on tomorrow night to drown our sorrows in the Richmond loss, no doubt. So I look forward to you all jumping on then. But Ben, massive thanks to you for coming on tonight, mate. Much appreciated. It was amazing to have you on and your insights. And give your YouTube page another plug, and we will get the link as well, and we will share that on our socials too. So, what was the YouTube channel again?
It's Noira19. I'll start NOIRA 19.
Very good. So we'll post the links up there.
Wrap episode coming out tomorrow, which will be fun.
Oh, very good. Well, yeah, just in time. So we will get that link out. We can go check out Ben's YouTube channel. Very good, Herbert. Yes, I know you want to bomb the Richmond list. I get it. I look forward to your comments tomorrow night on the show. So thank you again, Ben. Thank you as well, Lachlan, for organising Ben the jump on. Much appreciated. It was good fun. And it's just been a fascinating year of football and a lot to play out this week too, which is good. It's always nice to have some live games coming into the last round.
No worries. Yes. Thank you very much for having Ben.
No, that's right. Absolute pleasure. And we will see you all tomorrow night. Catch you later.